6:30, can I have a mover and a seconder to bring this meeting to order? Austin, Coghlan. That the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of August 1st, 2018 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. So I'd ask you to stand if you're able while we sing the national anthem. It'll be led by Councillor Austin, and then remain standing.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Please remain standing for a moment of private reflection or prayer. Please be seated. I'll first turn to council. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on any of the matters on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none. We don't have any deputations tonight. And we'll move on to previous minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get it on the table? McConkey and Coghlan. That the minutes of the council's items 6.2 through to 6.7 be approved as presented. Any of these you'd like to discuss or comment on? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And now minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations. Can I have a mover and a seconder on that? Richie and Alan. That the minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations, items 6.9 through to 6.10 be received as information. Does anybody want to comment on either of these or discuss it? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And now correspondence and information items. Oh, did I miss one? Oh, moving a little too fast. Yes, question period. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to ask a question of anything on the agenda or even another question? And then if we can't answer it, we'll get back to you. We have a big audience tonight. Okay, seeing none, thank you. So moving on to correspondence and information items, can I have a mover and seconder for that? Coghlan? And someone else? Alan? The correspondence and information items 8.2 be received as information. Does anybody want to comment on that? Councillor Austin? Put your mic on. 8.2.
Right. So a comment on the action plan. Sorry, just getting my wording correct here. Simcoe Muskoka Opioid Strategy Action Plan. My question when I read the report was, it was a well-written report, but I did not see a clear statement in the action plan regarding educating physicians in the need to better monitor prescriptions for painkillers. I think there was reference to that as being a concern, but no statement saying how they might address that concern. That was my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, is there an opportunity to kind of provide input? I'll just turn to the clerk on this, because I know we're just receiving it as an information, but you may want to kind of work on that and maybe comment directly on this, because we're simply kind of receiving the information.
Perhaps I would find the contact information for the person who made it and then email that person directly. Okay, thank you.
That would probably be appropriate. Any other questions or comments on that? All those in favor? Carried. Now we'll move on to action reports, community improvement plan application. Can I have a mover and a second to get it on the table? Allen and Coughlin. The report from the junior planner regarding C1, C1, -2018-003 Waddy House, dated August 1st, 2018, be received. The council, having considered the application presented, the requirements of the community improvement plan, total funding requested, direct as follows. And our two choices are the application be approved and the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the appropriate agreement, or the application be refused and the applicant so notified. So maybe we'll have some questions, then I'll go back to the mover and seconder to decide what direction we want. Is there any questions on it? Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is that, from reading the report, it's not clear, but I believe this is a privately owned resident and not a business. And my understanding when the community improvement plan was put together, it was to help the economy of Springwater Township. And in my mind, I don't see a private residence, if this is a private residence, calling for a $5,000 grant to improve their property.
And maybe I can go to Director Spagnol to provide comment.
Thank you, Mayor French. One of the directives, through you to Councillor Hanna, one of the directives through the CIP was to build on cultural heritage and facades for buildings that have been deemed to be cultural heritage and have that sort of a value within the municipality. That is how this application meets that specific criteria and why staff has said that it supports the application as applied for.
And maybe to help along, yeah, I think it was my understanding that it kind of on the streetscapes or whatever in the entrances or main streets or whatever, because they are a mix of commercial and residential, if anything, makes the entire area look better and fall under the criteria. I think that's why the application was received and being recommended. Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, and I appreciate the response. And my follow-up question is, I'm not sure, but maybe staff could help me if somebody else can't, that how this helps the economy of Springwater Township residents. We're using taxpayers' money to help a taxpayer fix up their property, and I'm just not sure what benefit is to the rest of the taxpayers in Springwater.
Director Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor French, to Councillor Hanna. One of the directives through the community improvement plan was to try to beautify certain areas of the municipality. One of the ways of doing that is to provide for facade improvements and build on the cultural heritage features of built form within those areas. And that is on how this would do this. So in turn, what that means is if you have a rich cultural heritage built form or a rich built form, in essence, what that does is that attracts more people to the community because it's beautified and it's something that is culturally rich to improve the community, bring in tourism, and it might make people want to be involved in those streetscapes more often than not.
Councillor McConkey?
Sitting on the heritage, bit of background, when the CIP came forward, it did say about heritage, and I know I had concerns at the heritage meeting where we had to review the CIP and see what we felt. Honestly, I didn't feel that heritage gets a rebate already for looking, when they look after, they have to say what they've done on their building and they get a tax rebate based on that they've kept their building up to date. So I thought that that was how we were already rewarding. So I didn't see another reason why we had to add it to the CIP, but I know the rest of the Heritage Committee felt very strongly that, no, we should be helping to preserve and anything that we can help preserve. So the motion went in favor to keep the heritage in the CIP, and I believe that was what a lot of the people here, because there was no debate on council on that. This is a roof. Again, all of the heritage people felt that this was great, that someone is taking something that's going to be lasting and, making it, improving their building. So that's all I can say, and if it falls within the guidelines, I have a hard time not approving it if it is with all in the guidelines, and I just want to, confirm that.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor French. Just for clarification, is it a roof or is it finishings on top of chimney caps, the brass? So it's accessorizing the house, yeah.
I think, I guess my comment is, I think this is one of the first ones we've seen here, and even when I read the report, I was a little concerned about it, following up on kind of what Councillor Hanna had to say. But at the same time, I also kind of believe the beautification may attract people coming into our settlement areas, and so I'm kind of mixed on it. We haven't had a number of these. I think I will be concerned if all of a sudden there's an inflow of a lot of these. My simple question is, each one of these stand on their own merit and are they subject to any kind of appeal if they are denied? Director Spagno?
Thank you, Mayor French. The requester can ask council to reconsider, but for the most part, the decision rests in council's hands.
No, that's fine. Councillor Austin?
Thank you, Mayor French. I will be supporting this motion to grant the application. It's pointed out in the report that the caps, the copper chimney caps, will be there not just for beautification, but to maintain the life and functionality of the four chimneys. They will reduce moisture, restrict animal access, block downdrafts, and prevent sparks and embers from landing on the roof. The copper seams on the roofs of the two window canopies are intended to prevent deterioration. So again, they're not just for beautification, but also to preserve the building. And when council did approve the community improvement plan, we did include as part of the program, historic property improvement program. So as Councillor McConkey said, it was approved at that time. So I feel this application definitely meets the criteria. And again, we're not being flooded with applications. So I have no problem supporting this one.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll go to the mover and seconder. So are you supporting approval? Pardon? Because yes, okay. So that's what we'll do. So just to repeat, that the application be approved and the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the appropriate agreement. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And move on to the Seaton Road, establish name and as public highway. Can I have a mover and a second to get that on the table? Coughlin and Allen. The report from the clerk regarding Seaton Road, Part 4 of Plan 51R 34847, establish and name as public highway dated August 1st, 2018 be received. That a bylaw to establish Part 4 of Plan 51R 34847 as part of the public highway and to name the highway Seaton Road be presented to council for consideration. Any questions on this? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Carry. I'm going to ask a question after the fact. When I was looking at it, it would be nice in some of these, because lots of descriptions, but I don't think there was a map where that appears. It would be nice. I understand what we're doing and all that, but I think it would be helpful kind of for future things like that if we did have a map to see exactly what little section that we are kind of approving. Okay, moving on to council, oh no, sorry, I'm jumping around here. The Tenac Ridge Estates subdivision, final acceptance from the Director of Public Works. Can I have a mover and a second to get this on the table? Coghlan and Austin. That the report from the Director of Public Works regarding final acceptance of Tenac Ridge Estates subdivision dated August 1st, 2018 be received. That a bylaw for the final acceptance of the Tenac Ridge Estates subdivision be presented to council for consideration. That pending the passage of the bylaw, the Director of Public Works be authorized to sign the certificate of final acceptance. Any question of our director? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And now we're moving on to the committee review report. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get it on the table? Allen and Coghlan. The report from the deputy clerk regarding the council committee review dated August 1st, 2018 be received. The council provide feedback to clerk staff regarding the proposed recommendation provided within this report by August 20th, 2018, and that council support a final committee review report and recommendation be brought to the September 5th, 2018 council meeting for approval. So I guess that we can take some initial comments tonight and then additional ones up to August 20th. So please, floor is open. Anybody wants to make comment, or would they prefer to kind of provide them in writing to the clerk? Is that what we'd like to do? Okay. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French, through to the clerk. My first question has to do with under the Compliance Audit Committee, I have to go back and check this. There was a bit of confusion about the remuneration for the Compliance Audit Committee. On the one hand, it says remuneration for the 2018-2022 term will be paid by the County of Simcoe. Township will be responsible for any costs associated with an application for compliance audit for a spring water candidate. So I'm confused about that. Will they be paid by both the county and the Springwater Township? How will that work?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, through you. There will be two aspects of the committee. The initial meetings will combine all of the member municipalities who are participating, and that will be paid by the county. That could be a meeting or two. If there is an application, then the municipality who has the application will be responsible for the cost. So there's parts of it the county will be responsible, but the majority of it, if there is further application, would be the responsibility of the municipality involved.
Thank you. Second question or comment has to do with, say, the Community Assistance Program Committee. It talks about meetings being called by the chair, but it's a three-member committee. There is no designated chair. So I'm just wondering how that would work if you have a committee that does not have a designated chair.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Currently, the terms of reference state there should be a chair, but because that committee, the way the structure is, it doesn't, it's not really conducive to having a chair, so the committee hasn't appointed one. Going forward, the recommendation would be to have a grants committee, which would be a formal committee of council where things like the community or the community assistance program and the international competition grant program would be run through. And that would have a chair and formal meetings with agendas and minutes.
Follow up.
What would be the membership composition of that committee? Or have you decided on that yet?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Once the comments are received for this, staff will start working on terms of reference, which will be brought forward to council for consideration after the fact. At this point, it hasn't been determined what the membership should be.
Carry on.
Final question. Another committee that I've been thinking of recommending for council is a cultural advisory committee. We have a recreation advisory committee. I'd like to see something along the lines of trying to encourage culture. Now, I can, within the township, cultural activities within the township. And I would see, envision having definitely members of the general public on that. So I will be including that in my comments that I send to you.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I thought we were just receiving this tonight, but I would suggest that in case there's people at home that wonder why we're not honoring the hard work of the policing committee, I don't see it on the list. And I just let the people at home know we will be, or I will be suggesting that maybe we consider adding the policing committee to this list.
And actually, since you do mention the policing committee, and maybe I'll just ask our CEO briefly, because with the change of government, there may be some change in the direction going forward with the police act or whatever that might kind of obviously even change the governance model or community input as we go forward. Could you maybe give us a 30-second update on that, CEO Brindley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, the reason probably why it's not in here, it's actually a very unique committee. Its terms of reference have council members appointed to it, but it's a very independent body. So that's probably why you don't see it here. And I know that that group is actually going through a transition. Part of that is related to the fact that under the current legislation, we have been talking with the province about establishing a police services board, or what's called an attachment board as well. We're sort of in a holding pattern pending some of the changes that might happen with the current new government that's in place. They want to do a review of the legislation as it stands that was just passed before the election, essentially before they stopped sitting. So right now we're waiting to see what those changes are, but it's very well that by having a police services board, which is something that we would be bringing information to council in the near future, the police would actually not even interface with that committee. I know that it's been a challenge to get the police to come to that committee sometimes. What would happen under that model is the police would no longer attend those meetings. They would only attend police services board meetings. So what's going to happen in the near future with respect to potentially establishing a police services board might, and I've been talking to Mr. Sporing, who's the chair of that committee, might cause that committee to relook at what they want to do. They're a very active group that really wants to do community-based programming. It just might be something different than their essentially community policing committee. So that's all going to come up in the air in the next couple months. But that's what's happening, at least with respect to the potential for this council to have, not just with us, with Clearview and with Wasaga Beach, having a police services board, which we don't now. Currently, we have a community policing advisory committee. It's advisory only, whereas a police services board has more input on the operations of a police detachment.
Okay, and Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And just to clarify a bit more, maybe on certain committees that aren't included in this report, the Police Advisory Committee, the NVCA, health units, physician recruitments, those are committees outside of the realm of the municipality that request members of council to sit on. So we have no authority, no power over these committees. So there are those types of committees which are not included in a committee review, because we would only deal with committees of council.
Councillor McConkey?
I know the library is similar to the policing, it's at a distance, but the thing that I find strange that we don't have it on here is that the mayor does select the people who go on the committee. So if it was really at bay, you would think that the library people itself would select the people who goes on the committee. So I just need to understand why that wouldn't be on there if we're doing selection.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Just for this purpose, we did not look at boards at this point. So council has committees and boards, which the library is a board. We only focused on committees. Focusing on boards is a whole different project that has to be done on its own. The priority for now was on committees, and afterwards, which won't be done in time for the beginning of the term of council, but boards are what will be looked at next summer to look at the structure, to look at their authorization and whatnot. So that'll be separate.
And maybe for clarification, I guess the difference is we actually dictate the term of references for all these, where the MVCA and library, we don't dictate the terms of reference. Is that a good way of separating the two, possibly, from our perspective? Okay. Any other comments? I just have some comments. And again, as Councillor Hanna said, I'll put it in writing, but even though we never got it going, we've had a lot of kind of communication, and we're in the midst of our official plan review. I'm definitely going to be kind of suggesting we need to, establish, and we've done some terms of reference for the agriculture advisory, because I assume the red ones here are the ones that we would like to eliminate. And so I think we need that. I agree with that. The budget advisory, we as council, I think should do that. Building committee for the administrative center, I guess we can do ad hoc groups. We probably don't need anything like that. General committee, I agree with. Golf committee, I think in the last few years has worked well by establishing a golf committee. And comment on that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, thank you. So for the golf committee specifically, the mandate of the golf committee was for the 2018 term. So essentially by the way it was adopted and the terms that were put to it, the committee was to be eliminated once the tournament was completed.
But they're going to be formed each year, or it's your understanding it's going to be just council decision, Madam Clerk?
The motion only spoke to 2018. As of future years, the actual golf committee there's nothing establishing it, no terms to state that the committee would be revamped every year.
I think the obvious question would be, how can that be come up with a simple term of reference so it is established, so if there's an entirely new council comes in, they at least know we do this fundraising thing called a golf tournament, and this has been the mechanism in the past. I just wonder or I guess our comments coming back will be, we should establish one, and then you'll kind of report accordingly. Okay, that's fine. C.O. Brindley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Something for council to consider as part of this discussion is, does it need to be a committee or can it be ad hoc? Does it need a person taking minutes? Does it need that formality? Or is it something that can be called, as the meetings are now, it's a committee, but it really isn't. It's really more of an ad hoc committee, a working group per se, whereas it's called, once again, we even call a meeting, we need to meet tomorrow. That really doesn't lend itself well to a formal committee structure. It'd be more like an ad hoc or a working group.
No, and I don't disagree with that. It's just that I think we should establish some mechanism that we do have some, and I agree. I think it's an ad hoc, but I think someone should be aware that we do form it each year to kind of deal with it. And I guess the other comments, again, because we're, a municipality and we have very active and engaged councillors, I can agree with kind of the performance measuring working group, planning and development. 'Cause I know we talked about that, but I guess we as council are going to have to be commenting as we go forward in our official plan review, and same with the planning committee. And I guess I will be making comment is that because we changed the governance structure on our community recreation associations, I'll definitely be providing some input in Recreation Advisory Committee, because I think its structure in terms of reference should change dramatically. And I think it should be comprised of representatives from each of the associations and some members at large, because right now I think there's a disconnect. But so those are my comments for the moment. And actually, I know Councillor McConkey keeps bringing it up, and I don't know if it's a subcommittee or even a working group, and maybe working group or ad hoc this trails committee, because we have lots of trails around, and it's kind of, we get reports here, there, and we extend them, but it would be nice if there is a focused effort on kind of establishing kind of some real program for that. So that's my initial comments, and I'll definitely be putting them in writing. Any other comments on this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And we have a report here, 9.5, Ant Mills Water System. Can I have a mover and second to get it on the table? Coughlin? Hannah? The report from the Director of Public Works regarding the Ant Mills Water System additional storage and OCIF funding dated August 1st, 2018 be received. That staff be directed to prepare and submit the Ant Mills Supply System Improvements Project for funding under the top-up application component of the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, OCIF. That A&E Group be directed to carry out the design and permitting in the amount of $81,613, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary agreements. And we have our Director of Public Works here. Is there any questions on this? Councillor Coughlin.
Thank you, Mayor French, and through you to Director Coleman. If staff or if Springwater is not successful in this grant, will the work continue to go ahead this time?
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through to you to Councillor Coughlin. Our goal, should we not be successful in receiving funding, would put the actual estimated cost of construction in the 2019 budget and have it paid for out of the water reserves instead.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor McConkey?
Yeah, on that, would we have collected through DCs or put that into DCs?
Director Schmidt's going to answer this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor McConkey. There is only a small portion that's DC eligible for this project. A lot of the project is not eligible for DCs. It's to benefit existing property owners, if you will. So it's not DC eligible. There's only a small portion. There's I think 11 lots, or I'd have to double check the DC. It's a small portion is only DC eligible.
Follow up?
So the expansion, is it required because of new lots, though? No? Like, I just didn't know why all of a sudden, it seems that you have to expand a water plant.
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor McConkey. Several years ago, what happened, I believe, and I'm going from reading previous reports, is that the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change reduced our permit to take water, which allowed, at the time, should we had to fight a fire, we could have drawn directly from the wells to fight the fire. By reducing our permit to take water, we're no longer allowed to do that, so the water would have to come from storage. Should we fight a fire and the water fill back up in the storage tank, there's not enough time for the chlorine, what we call chlorine contact time, to make that water potable, so we would have to issue a boil water advisory. So it's through different mechanisms that the ministry changed our allowances that this has come to play.
Okay. Councillor Coughlin?
Thank you, Mayor French. And it was further to Director Coleman's, the response is that even last year when we weren't successful in that, the problem's not going away. So whether or not we are successful with the grant or not, we do have to do the work.
And you can confirm that, Director Coleman, the work needs to be done?
Thank you, Mayor French. Yes, I can confirm that.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, information reports. Let's get it on the table. 10.2 to 10.8, is it? Yeah. Mover and seconder. Richie Coughlin. The report items 10.2 through to 10.8 be received as information, which I'd like to pull any of these for discussion. Councilor Ritchie?
Mayor French, I'd like to pull 10.7, the Swelly Drain Update, please.
Councilor McConkey?
10.8.
10.8. Councilor Austin?
10.3.
Okay, 10.3. So shall we receive the rest of them, if that's all the ones we're pulling? Are there any more questions or deep-rooted discussion or changes?
Question.
Okay, well, let's start there before we kind of receive them. Councilor McConkey, I'll start with you.
Okay. On the growth report, and I will pick up the copy and go through it more thoroughly, but when I was looking at the settlement area hierarchy and the jobs per the settlement area, it does note that it's, and I think that we all have to look at this, is it's very important that we look at the full municipal servicing should be a focus of the township for Hillsdale, and it says that right in there. So we're going to have to watch as we move forward if this is what we want. Where I had concerns, though, was where it says Midhurst and Elmvale as major settlement areas given the growth designations. I find it difficult with Elmvale to be a major settlement area because I guess I was under the impression that it can't grow much more than it has because of the infrastructure. So, and going into the Y, I believe, the amount of, you know, do we have to create that infrastructure? Or like, will this put out a plan as to how it becomes that? Because I was a little surprised that Center Vespra wouldn't be more of a settlement area than just being an intermediate.
Director Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor French, through to Councilor McConkey. The report speaks to Elmville as being a major settlement area for a couple of reasons. The first one is under provincial policy, Elmville is one of only 2 settlement areas within the township that has what's considered or what's called a built boundary or a built-up area, which requires intensification. The other reason that it's considered to be a major settlement area is because it's probably one of the most complete communities, if not the most complete community or settlement area that the municipality has, in that it has commercial, it has industrial, it has fully serviced lands, it has schools, it has amenities. So some of the key recommendations that are provided for in the growth management strategy is to take a look at, first of all, possibility for intensification, but also for the municipality at some point in time to take a look at that servicing issue to determine how much development can be accommodated within Elmville. So as far as the key recommendations go within the strategy, it really does want to build on Elmville as one of the primary communities in the municipality, but recognizes that there are some servicing constraints as mentioned earlier. And I think it's more of a recommendation report where once council starts to dive into the recommendations and the required reports, then that'll provide for a little bit more clarity as to how Elmville will shape up in the grand scheme of things when we're looking at the settlement area hierarchy. When you take a look at Center Vespra, when you take a look at Snow Valley and some of the other settlement areas, they don't have built boundary and they don't have employment lands to the same extent as you would see, for example, in Elmville. And that's one of the reasons for the settlement area hierarchy and how it's set up.
Councilor McConkey?
My only concern with having, like, I agree Elmville is a settlement area, but when you put it out into a report like this, I see people looking at it and saying, okay, it's intensification in Elmville. I may as well take, so I could go buy a building, take it down, build it up, do a condo. And yet I'm gonna come to staff and say, oh, I want to do the condo now, and you're gonna say, no, I don't have the infrastructure to support that. Oh, I'm in a settlement area, so I'm gonna be sitting on some property now for a long time, knowing whether council's going forward with it. Same as like the Hillsdale thing. We really have to, I'm just telling the I might not be here at this time, but when you're making something a settlement area, make sure you can allow for the intensification and what you're gonna allow there. Same as for Hillsdale. If that's going to be our main bread and butter for industrial and commercial, then we need that infrastructure there, just like the report's saying. So I just want everybody to understand that.
Yeah, and I think, because I had a brief chat on this with our director, I think this is kind of the start of a lot of dialogue. This discussion paper, because it is, both of them are called discussion papers for that particular reason, and the strategy. And of course, we as council have to decide, does it make sense to us? Is that the way we want the future to unfold? And obviously, all the stakeholders have to comment accordingly. But I do like the way this was kind of drafted out. Any other questions on, since we're dealing with 10.8, comments on it? Councillor Anna.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a 167-page document, and 26 pages were executive summary, and honestly, I know staff didn't write this. Longest executive summary I've ever seen in a report. I'm just suggesting there's so much information here, would we not all benefit from a separate meeting of council or a training session? Because this is the future of our township, and I think we need to get it right.
Yeah, actually, I should have commented, but I'm going to allow Director Spagno to comment, because we had a discussion that we need an information and education session for council. Maybe you'd like to comment on that, Director Spagno?
Thank you, Mayor French, and Councillor Hannah, your point is well taken. Staff was actually questioning within the report the timeline frame for even having a presentation with respect to the documents that are before council. The information report that's on the council agenda speaks to a presentation from WSP in the fall. When you take a look at the work plan and the amount of information that is here, looking back at the report, staff's of the opinion that there should be longer duration or more time provided for stakeholders, the public, for council to read the documents. In saying that, I think the expectation would be that a roundtable discussion and educational session over the growth management strategy, I would have to think, and this is up to council to determine, would be more beneficial, I think, moving closer into the 2019 period because of the amount of information here and because of the need for stakeholder review and input. When you look at the work plan for the OP update, it really does require us to go back to the public with this document and provide opportunity for open dialogue. And really the question is, when is the proper time to do that? So Councillor Hannah's comments are valid, and I think really we have to be careful to provide enough time to review and provide enough education and enough information so that everybody knows exactly what these documents are saying to allow for the proper and informed decisions to be made moving forward.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Hannah, for the moment? Okay. Any other comments on 10.8? I mean, those are good comments. Okay, maybe we'll go on to 10.3, bylaw activity report. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French. May I also add that I'd like to ask two questions on 10.5?
No. I'll let you.
Thank you. Okay, so with 10.3, the bylaw enforcement report, I was happy to see that the bylaw enforcement department has been active in dealing with signs illegally put on township property. I give them kudos for that. I would be quite happy to see that extended too to signs that are on private property that shouldn't be. For example, signs on residential properties advertising commercial businesses. I know that the policy is that we wait until a resident complains about it, but personally I would like to see the township be more proactive. We are oversigned in not just in Springwater, but everywhere in Ontario.
Director Spagno, do you want to comment on kind of the commercial signs on private property?
Thank you, Mayor French. Commercial signs on private property are only permitted if the sign is for the use on the property, for a use that's zoned for that purpose. So really, it is a matter of being more proactive in recognizing situations where you've got commercial signs that may not be part of the main use of that property. The key, one of the typical signs that we see are the big billboards that are located on agricultural properties where you might have a commercial business being advertised. Staff is being more proactive in that respect and is looking at those situations a lot more closely now, especially with additional staff complement.
Okay, thank you. And comment or question on 10.5, Councillor Austin?
Mayor French, this is about the commercial building seeking rezoning on Highway 93, I believe it is. Okay. My question is, why did that commercial building ever exist on that property if the property was not zoned commercial in the first place?
Dr. Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor French, to Councillor Austin. It's a very good question. I know that it's a building that has been there for quite some time. What I would suggest is providing that question during the public meeting process to maybe get additional feedback from the agent acting on behalf of the property owner. As I said, it's the building has been there for quite some time, as long as I can remember it being there, as long as I've been here. So as far as the purpose and the use for which it was established, I can't comment on at this point in time, but it is something that could be questioned at the public meeting.
Thank you, Mayor French. I have a follow-up question, but should I also save that for the public meeting?
Well, you
Okay.
ask it now, it might be an
Okay.
easy answer.
The follow-up question was that half of the actual building on the property, half of it will remain in the environmental protection zone. I'm just curious about that. Looking on the map from above, part of the building will actually be in the environmental protection zone. Is there any conflict or concern about that?
Director Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor French, to Councillor Austin. I think the key consideration here is that the building has been there and it has been built. The zoning is providing for an addition to the front of the building away from the environmental protection area. And again, I think it's one of those things where, provided it's been a long-standing use, they're looking to legalize the front and rezone the property to allow the uses. So the determination as to whether or not it's a permitted building would really have to be directed towards the applicant and the agent.
Okay, and let's go on to 10. Now, 10.7, Councillor Ritchie, is there more comments on the report, or do you want to pull it for discussion?
I just wanted to, I had a question for the director.
Okay, carry on.
There's 10.7, the report that's being done by Al Shaw from Riverstone Environmental Solutions to complete the environmental works. This environmental report that's being done, is it standard for him to come before council and speak to us about this?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor French. I'm not sure if it's standard or not, but we can certainly request that he come when the final report is done so he can answer any specific questions you have.
Thank you, Director. Mayor French, I would like to have this gentleman come and speak before us, and just find out the involvement and the scope of work that they're done to justify the cost that we're spending and where this takes us. And maybe we can expand on that at that time. And I'm sure, I see there's a person out in the crowd there. There's a few others I'm sure that would like to come and just expand on this and see where we go, because I think it's very important, and I look forward to that report and them coming here to speak to us about it. Thank you.
So, Director Coleman, now do we need to, I mean, we're receiving a report, should we defer? No? Okay. Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor French. I also have questions on the same issue. I don't know if you want to receive or pull. If I can elaborate.
Why don't we pull it? And why don't we receive the rest of them now? Okay, moved by Ritchie, second by Coghlan, that the report items 10.2 through to 10.8 be received as information with the exception of item 10.8 to be dealt with separately. All those in favor? Carried. So we're back to dealing with, 10.7. Yes. Yep. 10.7. So all those in favor? Carried. So let's discuss 10.7 and Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. The amendments to receiving this that I would like to have council support this evening, the assessment schedule isn't, well, it's spoken to in the budget implications, but it's not spoken to. We have been talking with Director Buchanan about the assessment schedule, and I believe at that time, back in April, Ken was going to partake in establishing how the assessment was going to be done. And I think that the words benefiting property owners, assessed property owners, and affected property owners often is convoluting the discussion within the community. And I think that before information is brought forward to this council, the assessment schedule needs to be made available to members of the public so that they may understand how they are being assessed, and if they have any questions about whether or not someone else's tile drain is leading into it or if their property is actually leading off of it, that can be addressed prior to the public meeting. And further to Councillor Ritchie's comments, I would like to ensure that when they do come forward with their preliminary report, that it is a public meeting where there is opportunity for members of the public to make comment extended past the typical question period. The other question I have is about the preliminary report. I'm assuming now this is an additional $75,000 to $80,000, or this is, sorry, let's shake ahead. So this is already included in the works approved by council to move forward. So this isn't an additional fund. So this money has already then been assessed to the benefiting property owners, or this is being assumed by the municipality as its own?
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Coghlan. The $75,000 to $80,000 was approved by council. Once the final report is complete, the engineer will assess it to the properties, at which point we'll have a meeting to determine if that's appropriate. And if it is, then we would reimburse the costs from the other landowners other than ourselves. So this isn't, this is, the 75 to 80,000 was what was originally approved back in the spring.
Follow up.
Thank you. And when the public meeting, or hopefully with council support, when the public meeting is held, NVCA's comment, right now we're hearing that they have comment and they have no concerns with what's being moved forward. But I also think that once this report comes forward, in order for council to make a decision, NVCA's comments need to be in at that time, rather than talking about it and say pending NVCA comment.
Duly noted. What is actually, I don't have the schedule here. So obviously there's been kind of studies and reports, and so when would be the next public engagement in the municipal drain process for, going forward with kind of improvements? Maybe Director Coleman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor French. What's underway right now is the environmental assessment to determine if there are any full stops that we can't work in that area. So once that is complete, then Mr. Smart will continue on with his report to determine what works we can do, at which point we can apply for an NVCA permit. I would say that we could bring it back to council prior to applying for a permit to get feedback on that. Should you wish a public meeting, we can do that. We started in March or April of this year, so the full year study would carry through till March or April of next year, at which point we'll have more information.
No, because I think I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Ritchie, because, you know, the more we look at it, the more I think we understand it. Over time, obviously, the outlet and that has got plugged and the drain doesn't drain the way it's supposed to be, and so we're trying to come up with corrective measures. And I'm not sure where we as a municipality lie kind of in the maintenance of it. But obviously, there's an assessment against benefiting landowners. And some of them are concerned, and probably rightfully so. And I just wonder if there's part of an exercise, we as a municipality, to get it back on track, we might have to absorb a little higher percentage of the initial improvements to get it back to being a proper outlet drain, because I think that's the issue. We don't have an outlet that's workable at the present time. And so I think there needs to be a number of considerations. That's why I definitely would like to see kind of a discussion and with all the landowners and ourselves and the MVCA, because possibly there's maybe to do the improvements, maybe there has to be a higher percentage of the overall assessment taken on by NVCA, Ministry of Natural Resources, and the township to mitigate some of the costs to the local farming community. So, and I think Councillor Ritchie was next.
Mayor French, I just wanted to mention to the Director of Public Works, you mentioned about a permit from the Nottawasaga Valley. I would assume that they're involved, they know what's going on, and I hope that there's no delay on their part in regards to a permit in order to move forward with this as soon as we can. I think there's been enough time here under the bridge that when the time's ready to move, we're not waiting for any length of time. So if it means keeping them abreast of what's going on, then so be it. Just we need to move on it.
I'll go to Director Coleman, but the MVCA is directly involved all the way through this process, but maybe you want to comment some of the conversation or meetings that are conducted on an ongoing basis?
Thank you, Mayor French. No, I can just reiterate what you said, that they've certainly been involved since the beginning. They are the ones that have requested these studies as part of allowing us working in the menacing wetlands. There have certainly been verbal agreements that should this all proceed like we planned, that it would play out in a fairly quick manner as opposed to being dragged out.
Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor French. And further to your comments, through the Drainage Act, from what I understand, the reason I'm requesting a public meeting is that the Drainage Act only requires there's the three words, the affected property owners to be notified of what's happening, whereas the work that's being done is paid for by all assessed. So my request is that the public meeting is being held for all assessed property owners, which is not required by the Drainage Act.
I'm just trying to remember when the outline for the approximate assessments based on a couple $100,000 that we had the meeting in Minising. I think the assessment where it was going to go and rough numbers were pretty much provided to everyone, because I know Mr. Vanderwill in here, I mean, there's a chunk that he would be paying if it was improved based on those assessments. And that's why I do think and for the Councillor Coghlan, the assessment thing has to be reviewed. But my understanding is that under the Drainage Act, the interesting thing is that, because I think I asked the question, do all assessed properties have to agree with proceeding forward? And my understanding is no, they don't. But if there isn't support for it, then there becomes okay, what is the impact or what remediation, loss of land or whatever, then that could come back and be assessed against the property owners, which is kind of a really convoluted way of doing it. That's why I think there's no question the drainage system needs fixed. I don't think anybody argues that, especially the ones that are kind of being directly impacted. And I know the ones that may be upstream from it, they don't see a direct impact. But the reality is that, because it's been there for over 100 years, and it has drained properties, and and if it's not fixed, I think it'll be more than just a bit of farmland lost. I think we might have a problem with a county road kind of being underwater at some particular point. So I think that it is important to have a public meeting so we can all discuss it and to get it going and back on track. Yeah, I think maybe some of the bigger players have to take on a little bigger piece of the assessment to get it back in order, and then ongoing maintenance would be assessed as appropriate. That would be my kind of general comments. Any other comments? Councillor Coghlan.
Sorry, well, second last comment. Also, in preliminary discussions with the NVCA, to have a maintenance schedule be part of their okay, essentially, so that we as a council or as a municipality are not going back to them every time we need to enter into that. I don't know how long that maintenance schedule could be, but to have that discussion come forward as well. And then if council tonight to amend the motion to have read that the assessment schedule be provided to the public as soon as it's available, and that a public meeting be held once the assessment and NVCA comments are ready for us.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, Director Coleman, but the assessment schedule based on percentages, I think, is already public, is it not?
No, thank you, Mayor French. Mr. Smart will do that as part of his works after everything's after all the studies are complete and after his design, I guess, for the repairs is complete. That tends to come closer to the end.
Okay. Councillor Coghlan?
Sorry, just for clarification, Director Coleman, I was told or under the impression that the assessment schedule was beginning, the work on that was beginning now. That I was to assume, because that's going to be a large job. What I was told is he has to go to essentially every property and determine drainage. So if this schedule is going to be moving forward, then I'm not sure how that's going to happen in a timely fashion.
Director Coleman, comments?
I can clarify with Mr. Smart, but I know that, like, certainly there was an assessment schedule prior to this work, but he has to review that and make sure that that's, I imagine there'll be additions and changes to that because people have sold their property and whatnot. I can check and see if he started, but I think that comes closer to the end.
Okay, so procedurally, I guess we need to kind of deal with the main motion. So the main motion of the report, item 10.7, be received as information, so we got to deal with it first and then we go to an amendment or addition. So can I have a mover and a seconder for the original motion to receive? Ritchie and Austin? Councillor Coghlan?
I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion. I need a second. Well, I guess I should read it to you first, but
Yes, yeah.
that a public meeting be scheduled, and that once the assessment schedule is available to us, we make it available to the public as soon as possible.
Seconder? Okay, Ritchie? Okay, the amendment is, the motion now before council be amended as follows. Add that the assessment schedule be made public as soon as it is available and that a public meeting be scheduled. Is that clear? All those in favor? Carried. Now I guess we go back to the main motion as amended. Okay, and still is it okay with Ritchie and Austin that the report item 10.7 be received as information and that the assessment schedule be made public as soon as it is available and that a public meeting be scheduled? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. So now we'll move on to verbal reports. And I'll start maybe, well, I guess you can do a quick comment on the official plan review because we got lots of information before us. Maybe you'd like to comment on that, Director Spagno?
Thank you, Mayor French. I think really I'd just like to say that the documents will be provided online and will be uploaded onto the township's website within the next couple of days. Next steps will entail circulating the documents to the stakeholders, agencies, and anybody who requested through the process to be circulated of the documents and notifying them that they are available for review. And really what this does, as Mayor French indicated earlier, this really is the starting point to collecting comments, opening up the dialogue, and discussing what the contents are within these documents to start moving this process forward.
Okay, and is there anything new on the economic development update?
Thank you, Mayor French. The only thing I'd like to report is that staff continues to work with eSolutions now, who have been retained on the website overhaul as one of the key projects that we're working on, and we will continue to do so.
Okay, moving on to county updates. You know, we didn't have a county council meeting in July, but the one thing I'll mention, and then Deputy Mayor Allen can pipe in with any other information, is of course August 7th. The county launches its transportation system from the county building, and of course Route 1 does service Midhurst with 2 stops, and Elmville, and up through Waverly and Wybridge and Midland and Penetang, and so that'll be very good, and it runs on an hourly basis going north and south, and certainly gives an opportunity for people to get to college and to doctor's appointments and so forth, so hopefully it becomes well used. That's my only comment. Deputy Mayor Allen?
Yes, thank you, Mayor French. Yes, the next county meeting is August 14th. Also, Simcoe Day, August 1, there are a lot of events going on at the Simcoe County Museum. You can see those online. And then I guess the other thing was the new paramedics station facility up in Elmville that there was a public announcement about, brings a good economic benefit to Elmville, so that's news.
I should just, for anybody that is listening, the Simcoe Day is it's not the first because that's today, is next Monday, which is the actual holiday we celebrate, and it's at the museum. Councilor Rich, you had a question? Did I see your hand up? Oh, okay. Okay, good, good. Yeah, and also the adult center that's in Elmville. Do you have a question?
I'll wait for 11.
Okay. Well, any other questions on the county? Okay, moving on to municipal updates. Councilor Ritchie.
Mayor French, this Sunday, Orr Lake is having their picnic at the Orr Lake Park. Everybody's welcome for a barbecue. So that's this Sunday, I think at 12 noon, Orr Lake Park. And also the Winger Dinger Golf Tournament in Phelpston. It starts at 12 noon. So if you like to play horseshoes and you like a barbecue and a nice cold drink, come on up to Phelpston. We'll look after you and we'll wine and dine you. Look forward to seeing you. It's supposed to be a nice hot day, and I'm sure we'll have lots of cold drinks for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Any municipal updates? Councilor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. Also, just to remind everyone that the Labor Day, we don't meet before that, right? No. The Labor Day tournament in Minising, the slow pitch tournament, Minising's annual and largest fundraiser. So for everyone to come on out, if you're playing baseball or not playing baseball, again, there's lots of entertainment and cold drinks. So it's a great time, and hopefully our team wins again.
And that starts on the Friday evening, goes to the Sunday. Is that correct? And I know there's a number of other events. And do they have a Facebook or page that?
Minising has both a Facebook page and a website, yes.
Great. Any other municipal updates? Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French. The Sci-Fi Fantasy Festival that was sponsored by the BIA, its second annual one, was by all accounts very successful. The BIA is having an annual general meeting on September 18th and invites all business property owners or commercial property owners and businesses to attend that, as they are all members. And the last announcement is the EDHS Shared Facility Fundraising The organization, which originally committed to raising $200,000 for the facility, is now at the $258,000 point.
Good. Any other comments? Just as a general comment, because, you know, we did pass a resolution regarding Edwin Espinal, the kind of spouse of Karen Spring, and being held in Honduras jail. And we've heard nothing, so I sent another email as a follow-up just asking for comment from Minister Freeland and Ambassador Rodriguez. I haven't heard anything yet, but we will stay on top of that because apparently the ambassador is not really very cooperative and not exactly of great assistance, so we can put that in the public record. That's my comments. Any other municipal updates? Okay, seeing none. Any notices of motion? Okay. Items for future consideration. Is there anything new we want to add to the list? Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor French. Our policy at council is that anybody attends conferences will come back and report to council and staff the benefits and what they learned at those council meetings. I would like to ask that we get a report from staff on who on council has attended any conferences at Good Roads or AMO or any of those other things that we might attend, and ask the councilors that attend there to provide us an update if they haven't already, give them an opportunity to do so, and let us know what the benefits of attending those conferences were, and would they recommend council people attending them in the future. I think that's important because I only ever attended one AMO conference, and while it was informative, I thought it was more of a social thing than an educational thing for me anyway. So if we could get a report from staff on who's attended, what the cost was, and then have the person that did attend let us know whether it was financially benefit for the township for them to attend.
Okay, I'm not CEO Brindley, or I'm not sure who will kind of spearhead that. I know the clerk's making a note here, but I'll leave it with the clerk and CEO. Any other items? Okay, seeing none, we have a bylaw here. Can I have a mover and a seconder for bylaws? Allen and Coghlan. That the bylaws listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. And confirmatory bylaw, mover and a seconder, McConkey and Coghlan. That bylaw 2018-058 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on August 1st, 2018, listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. And our adjournment bylaw. Austin and Coghlan. At the regular meeting of the Township Planner is now adjourned at 7:43 p.m. to meet again in the regular meeting on September 5th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the Council Chambers, Administrative Center in Minising. All those in favor? Carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank those online that joined us.